So almost a year after its announcement, and 248 clickbaity fake trailers later, we finally have the first trailer to Transformers: The Last Knight. For about half the fandom, this will be one of the most anticipated films of the year. Nobody can quite do this style of filmmaking like Michael Bay can. And yes, it's a very specific style. There's even a video that outlines why it's so unique and what makes it so hard to replicate. I'll leave a link at the end of the video. So far, the Transformers films have followed a specific pattern. One decent, one terrible. One decent, one terrible. It seems like we're getting the same pattern this time, because this one seems to be a lot more focused than Age of Extinction, and it's going to be followed by a pretty obvious stinker. There are a few things I want to explain before we get to the analysis though. First, this video will involve a lot of speculation. If that isn't your kind of thing, then go watch a reaction video where someone stares blankly into the screen and yet somehow claims fair use. Just to clarify, not all reaction videos are like that, but a lot of them are, and I'm sure they'll have you covered. And if you think this kind of video is pointless because the script was leaked online ages ago, then congratulations. You're the reason behind point number 2. The comments have been disabled due to the little shits who like to spoil the fun for the rest of us, along with the entire film. Some of us actually like to think about this and compare theories, you know. As for the third point, know that I am looking into this under the assumption that, much like the first 3 Transformers films, this film will be utterly terrible and I will love every minute of it. Rating the quality of something doesn't necessarily equate to enjoyment, and out of the films we've gotten, I was only disappointed with the last one due to the utterly abysmal third act. If they'd kept it together, it might have surpassed Dark of the Moon as my favourite, but I digress. This video will analyse, critique, and theorise what's going on behind these shots in what I consider a pretty well-rounded trailer. The trailer opens with a few shots of a medieval battle. It's likely this is going to be a reference to that G1 episode where the Autobots and Decepticons go back in time. It's the one with the famous jousting scene. As far as references go, it's a smart move taking from G1. The campy style of that show surprisingly works in the campy style of these films. Don't forget that Dark of the Moon's final act was basically that episode where they brought Cybertron into Earth's atmosphere combined with All Hail Megatron. The comparisons between this film and Dark of the Moon don't stop there. I remember reading in the papers that the third film was considered campy fun, whereas the fourth was utter garbage in the mind of the critics. If we look how badly Revenge of the Fallen was received, we can see that Paramount at least tried to fix the mistakes. I believe they're doing the same here, trying to take from animated with Lockdown, Ratchet's death, Megatron being rebuilt in a lab, and the way the Dinobots were let loose, which is somewhat reminiscent of Dinobot Island if you punch a few brain cells out, clearly didn't work, so now they're going back to the roots of the franchise. I doubt we'll get anything along the lines of the jousting scene, but the inspiration is there. And while we're on that, the opening cross imagery could imply that this film will involve some sort of crusade. Perhaps it's between Christianity and a weird cult that worships the Decepticons? I wouldn't put it past Michael Bay. Still, I have no evidence to support this fact. However, I don't think he was put there willy-nilly. After a few generic army shots, although I should preface that they are the medieval army considering Michael Bay's affinity to the US military, we get this sweeping shot of a dragon. The identity of this dragon is yet unknown, however the most likely candidate is Predaking. However, it's also a possibility that it is a unique character just thrown in there for the heck of it. Each film has had quite a few of those, and if we get a good toy of it, I don't really mind. We can also see someone on horseback on the cliffs. It doesn't look like they're following the dragon, nor like they're trying to escape its terror. It's possibly that one is leading the other in a certain direction. However, either way they share a destination. From here, after a quick arrow shot, we see an explosion behind some medieval soldiers. It is my belief that this is a preliminary shot before they add in the robots in front or behind. It doesn't make sense to put an explosion in the medieval times and not have a laser blasting at them or a robot punching the ground. It also seems like both sides of the previous medieval fight have come together to defend themselves. I could be wrong about this, but if it happened in the film I wouldn't be surprised. It is here that Anthony Hopkins brings forth one of the taglines in an attempt to tie this film to the original trilogy.
Without sacrifice, there can be no victory.
To be honest, this confirms my fears about the writer. Whilst they try to shove down our throats that he wrote for the Academy Award Best Picture winning film, they're quick to hide the fact that he also wrote for the 2 worst Batman films, the second Divergent movie, both Da Vinci Code and Angels and Demons, wrote and produced the horrible Lost in Space reboot, and was the executive producer for 3 of the Paranormal Activity films. That said, I do expect a jump in quality in the writing. Ehren Kruger's writing style is cringeworthy and at times offensive.
Alright, listen, hold on, boundaries, flag on the play.
Don't let your kids watch it!
Akiva Goldsman is just stupid, particularly with the removal of the sexy sidekick character that has plagued the past films, where I particularly hated the girl who was also Katara from that not Avatar movie. Don't expect me to bother googling her name. I can see a thankfully drastic dip in the sexual and racist comedy. There might be a lot more stupid jokes, but I can live with that. Although whilst we're on the sound, I sincerely hope this isn't the song they used for the movie. None of them have been good, but if this is what they intend to use, then I really don't like it. I doubt something like this would actually make it into the film though, as it wouldn't sell tell very well. It seems like it was an insert song only for the trailers, and I hope it stays that way. Also, I want to personally apologize to the Flaming Lips. This song utterly tarnishes your composition. On behalf of the Transformers community, I hope this never happens again. We then cut to a shot of Winston Churchill's residence being appropriated as a Nazi stronghold. I doubt it'll go down as one of the worst things the film has ever done, more likely disappearing after a few months in the news, but it is something that happened. Again, I think this is just a preliminary shot with the robots yet to be added. However, bombs dropping and causing explosions is much more plausible than a medieval scenario. One random warfare shot later, we are now completely out of the past sections and into the present. Not even a quarter of the trailer was dedicated to it, so it could be interpreted as evidence showing a lack of time travel for most of the film. Following the pattern established in the other films, the first act usually starts off by building up something that has happened a long time ago before reintroducing both the human lead back in his normal life and the Autobots slowly discovering the new threat. If I had to guess, I'd say Bumblebee is hanging out with Cade this time since Optimus is gone. However, there's currently no basis for this claim. Before this trailer, I believed they'd spent 2 acts within the past. However, the lack of footage from this time being shown and the exposition provided by Anthony Hopkins' character, the overall way in which this film will present the past will likely be between 5 minutes of flashback to simply 1 act and nothing else. It's a real shame as it squanders the possibilities for such an idea of time travel, which now may not even be used, and instead goes for the big bad straight away that could be saved for later films. Still, experimenting isn't exactly something Paramount wants to be doing after Age of Extinction. My guess is the aim of the game is playing it safe, and although I might not get what I personally want, these films never fail to go against one's expectations. Of course, I mean story expectations here, not quality ones. The next shot, or the first in what I consider the main section of the trailer, shows what is apparently a destroyed baseball stadium. I'm not a sports fanatic, and even if I was, that sport isn't very popular in Australia, so I'm going on what others have said. The main point of interest in this shot is that the buildings in the background don't appear to be damaged in any way. This means that either the site was attacked in the past and has been closed off, or there is a current attack there that hasn't spread to other parts of the city. The empty atmosphere of these shots supports the first theory, whereas videos and interviews taken on set with the child actors supports the others. Speaking of which, the confused look on their faces also supports the first theory. However, the fact that the engine is still on fire supports the second. Honestly, it could go either way, or even a bit of both. I really like how they bring back the Decepticon gunships, by the way. I absolutely loved their designs in the third movie, and seeing them come back time and time again just gives me the chills. These things look ugly as hell though. Bloody Tyranid knockoffs. We then cut to the girl who apparently used to work on Nickelodeon. On one hand, the kids in films tend to be bad actors and written way too annoyingly for most of the time. On the other hand, no more over-sexualized teenagers. Now there's absolutely no way to make a joke about the age of consent.
How old are you?
20.
She's a 17-year-old girl.
We're protected by the Romeo and Juliet laws.
We dated for a little while. I was a sophomore and he was a senior. It's fine.
No, it's not fine.
We've got a pre-existing juvenile foundational relationship. Statute 2705-3.
All right, I gotta leave, okay?
John, we just started. Come on, man.
Listen, there's a lot to see in this life. Not wasting it here.
And you ask me why Age of Extinction is my least favourite. Well, to be honest, that's not even the main reason. This robot right here is actually being debated about more than the character at the start of the trailer, even though I think that one will have more of an impact. My money's on Huffer, but it could also be an original character. I seriously doubt that it'll be Erector though, the Micromaster from G1. There are a fair few that are saying it could be, but Hasbro's new name policy doesn't exactly allow for slightly sexual or violent names. Don't believe me? Take a look at Hasbro's Leo Kaiser, which I'm still salty about. Leozak becomes Deathsaurus and then gets renamed as Desarus, Hellbat into Fellbat, Kill Bison into Iron Bison. Grow a pair, Hasbro. Still don't believe me that it applies to sexual names too? Think about why they didn't just call Arachnid Black Arachnia like they usually do. They're basically the same, minus the tragedy of Black Arachnia. Funny thing, just as I was writing this, Jeremy Jahn's video popped up and he stated that it was Bumblebee. However, going by his overall facial design, I seriously doubt it. Not only is it not round enough, but Bumblebee never had lips, and his new/old design just doesn't match up. Now this is where things start getting interesting. We're introduced to this big mechanical hole. We don't know where it is, we don't know what it is, we don't know what's at the bottom, and we don't know what's going on. So let's try to answer those questions. First up is where, and there are 2 options. The obvious one is that they're in space near that big planet thingy that appears later on. It's obvious there isn't any regular atmosphere and those are clearly floating around like they're in anti-gravity. Or are they? Take a closer look on the light around these vehicles. Light doesn't work like that in space. There could be a small amount of atmosphere forming around the giant planet thingy, but it's more likely that they are in fact underwater. From here I'm forming a very big fan theory that doesn't really have any basis in reality, but if it turns out to be true that would be awesome. But before that, let's answer the other questions, or at least try to. To me it seems pretty obvious that these are some sort of human invention. The design does not look Cybertronian in the least. Whether there are humans in there or not is left to be said, but they definitely weren't built by the Transformers. However, the design of the hole is definitely not human. This clearly looks Cybertronian. So if humans are trying to enter it, but they didn't make it, and this could be underwater, then this is where I try to come up with my ridiculous fan theory. Note that I haven't read the leaked script, so I'm going off my own imagination. I believe that this is an exhaust port to the center of the planet, where Unicron slumbers. They may be taking some cues from Prime and have the planet literally be Unicron himself. This might be at the bottom of a trench that humanity has not been able to reach, where you can see the outer layer of Unicron. And don't worry, I've taken the rest of the trailer into account as well, but we'll get to that later. The next shot has a lot of people talking, however it's hard to discern its nature. We see Optimus Prime falling through space, almost frozen. It's impossible to tell whether he simply ran out of energon, or whether something or someone attacked him mid-journey. We also don't know if this is his trip to the creators, or if this is his return to Earth, if he makes that return at all. We do know that he comes back at some point to fight Bumblebee, but when this takes place in the movie is up in the air at this point, although it's probably in the last act. The lack of rubble around him could possibly mean that he's not damaged and just sleeping, fitting in with the community joke of him running out of fuel before he reaches his destination. However, it's important to note that this is all preliminary CGI, and at any point they could adjust it. We do see ice trailing off him though. Obviously he's been in space for a long time. Also, given Michael Bay's directing style, this will probably be the opening shot of the scene where he floats to his destination. Don't forget, inertia isn't lost as much in space as it is on Earth, so science can be bent to have him traveling weeks on his own after running out of juice. This shot is super vague. You've basically got a giant horn sticking out of the desert. However, if we're going by my theory, this is one of Unicron's horns protruding from the Earth's crust. Hell, they could even blame global warming on Unicron. That would be hilariously bad. Anthony Hopkins' character appears to be a historian, looking over what seems to be Christian artifacts. This leads back to my idea about the Crusade being used in the segments of the past. I'm not completely sure, but it's entirely possible. We get a brief glimpse of Squeaks, aka the BB-8 knockoff. Having the character might seem cheap at first, but don't forget the previous movies somehow gave us a worse version of Wheelie. Oh wait, he was spotted on set! This is where things start getting interesting again. Marky Mark appears to be cornered by human troops? Yeah, after the whole China fiasco, and even in spite of claims that the Autobots are now all over the planet again in an opening montage, the humans still don't like the Transformers. Or maybe they do and Cade knows something that they don't, which causes him to go rogue. This is unlikely, but it is a possibility. It does make some of the other shots make more sense though, as the humans pushing their technology better by stealing from the Transformers could be ongoing, even if the scientist from the last film hasn't the stomach for it anymore. And then for the money shot, or as I like to call red herring number 1. Many are calling this Unicron. However, honestly, nothing about this looks like him. The colors are off, there are no spikes or mouth. It looks more like it would destroy the planet more than devour it. And if we're going by Michael Bay's size of Cybertron, Unicron would at least need to be 10% larger than Earth to seem like a threat. But knowing the disregard for established characters that Paramount, ILM, and Bay have, it could very well be Unicron. I'm still not convinced though. I think it could be one of those moon drones he has in Beast Wars, just with a modern coat of paint. Maybe it's unrelated to him entirely, but it could very well be Unicron. We just don't know at this point. And I mean, hey, we're getting Hot Rod. They could be taking stuff from the 1986 movie. And if that's the case, it could even be the planet Junk. This is just speculation, however. In this shot, we see humans surrounded by mechanical murder weapons, clearly coming from the Death Star thingy we saw earlier. What seems interesting to me is what's connected to the planet as well. These ships seem very reminiscent of Lockdowns, and they could use the same cable connecting systems, only much longer. Perhaps this film will build on what Lockdown's race really is. He may very well not be Cybertronian, and we could get the answers we never knew we wanted. Then we have a shot of Cade running towards the house, most likely to contact someone. The murder moon is in the background, and since this probably won't arrive until the second act at least, although my money's on the third act, the Autobot group has likely stopped to take a breather, and the big bad has just come into the picture to ramp the intensity back up. If that's the case, this likely isn't a scrapyard owned by Cade Yeager. I seriously doubt they're giving him elements of Denny Clay in this film. We then see Bumblebee beating the crap out of what is clearly a human-driven mech, doing the acrobatic fighting style that no one seems to notice. Not much can be taken from the shot, however considering how high the stakes will be, this likely will take place during the first act. Meanwhile, the kid character is trying to convince someone, probably Cade, that she can fight the Decepticons. Whilst I'm hoping she won't tag along because the logic is incredibly contrived and she'd barely last 2 minutes in a realistic situation, the acting doesn't seem too bad from these few lines.
I want to stay, and I want to fight them.
I'll reserve judgment for the film. Then you see Marky wielding a Cybertronian pistol. It's a little sad that they didn't include the full-on rifle that he had last time, but this does look pretty swish. You know what would be cooler though? Dual wielding! I kinda have a thing for characters that dual wield pistols. This explosion and the way the robots are set up make it hard to tell who's who. However, maybe I can see Hound in the back there. I'm pretty sure these are just Genericons though, and we can also see that Cade is packing quite a few weapons in there. He's clearly taking the action hero role of this film, which is much better than the everyman approach coach Sam had. This shot is actually more interesting than it first lets on. The scenery appears to match up with those later on, placing it on the shores of the UK. We see Megatron walking menacingly to the camera, and it looks like he's sporting the fusion cannon properly this time. Not sure how they'll create this design in toy form though. I have no idea what it'll transform into. Now I want to draw your attention to the cannon in the foreground. For some reason it's decorated with crucifixes? Some might say they're circular, but you can see the one on the side looks like a cross on a 45-degree angle. And there's another cannon in the background, which is one of Bay's techniques to showing off the scale of the environment. We then get an action shot of the coastline of the United Kingdom, or at least that's what I think based on the filming locations. Considering the lighting and the lack of color correction, I think this is another preliminary shot before they add in the extra CGI. I honestly couldn't tell you what these devices are, or who's attacking them, but the way they're arranged, they could be a group of space bridges. They probably aren't, as we've already established the space bridges as pillars, but so far that's all I've got. We're given a few really quick shots that reveal two facts. Cade has some contact with a military group later on, along with Lennox, and this fight likely takes place on the coast. If this is the case, the giant hole could be right next to it, or in a trench somewhere else. At this point we don't really know. Then we're treated to our first look at Hot Rod. And there's not much to say, it's just a car chase. This shot confuses me. We have Lennox facing down Megatron. Aside from the design not looking bad, the main thing is going through my mind is, again? Seriously, twice he's had a human in front of him that he could have killed instantly, and yet he does nothing. Has Megatron ever killed a human on screen before? Lockdown did it without a second thought. But Megatron? Nah, he's a wimp. I'm sure we could get more context later on, but seriously, can you at least let him kill someone for once?
You want a piece of me? You want a piece? No! I want two!
No, that doesn't count. One generic Marky Mark shot and one generic explosion shot later, we get a brief glimpse of Bumblebee taking down Barricade. I've always been fond of Barricade, mostly due to the BDS games, and honestly I'm okay with this redesign. Clearly they haven't gotten his CGI model done yet though, as we only see his car mode. The only other thing I can say about this scene is that it clearly takes place in London. I'm actually going to London a month after the film comes out. Hopefully I don't get chills on the plane knowing what happened in the movie. We then get Optimus standing up amidst a smoky backdrop. Closer inspection reveals that the sky is in fact a space backdrop, meaning that it's finally made it to the creators and hasn't been brainwashed yet. You can see the ice standing around him, which supports the theory that the previous shot takes place leading up to this. And then the shot that has everyone talking. Optimus Prime attempting to kill Bumblebee. This has got to be the most shocking scene in the trailer, hence leaving it for last. While it would be nice for Optimus to finally snap and become a murderous maniac he has always hinted at being, unfortunately, you can see that his eyes are purple. If you've seen the Prime cartoon, you'll know that they use purple eyes to represent Dark Energon. I'm pretty angry about this. I had this idea of giving Optimus Prime Dark Energon and turning him into Nemesis Prime. I wanted to make an animation about it, but no, they have to do it first. But in all seriousness, Bumblebee isn't going to die from this, considering he has a spin-off movie to attend to. Maybe that movie will take place before The Last Night, but I seriously doubt they kill off one of the most profitable characters in the whole franchise. There's a reason he's become the leader of his own team in the new show. A couple of things to note though. First off, foliage in a place like this? Not sure how that would work. And secondly, you can see Optimus Prime has the same kind of scar that Lockdown has. Someone on Facebook pointed out that both of them could have been reprogrammed, which might link it to the red you can see on Optimus's face in some of the posters. And that just about wraps it up. If there's one thing I hope, it's the future trailers still keep a lot of things under wraps. I'm sick of knowing the whole movie before I go in. I like a surprise or two, even if the surprise is that the last movie was a complete steaming pile. I might continue to do these analyses, but I will skip them if the new trailers don't exactly reveal very much more. Which would be okay for me, but it wouldn't be okay for the video. Although it would actually be okay for the video because damn, this is a long video. I mean, the audio recording's half an hour long. Jeez, this is gonna take a lot of editing.